Hello again, everyone. The subject of this video is something that Michael Moore has written about Donald Trump and the people who are going to vote for Donald Trump. And he nails it right on the head. And I'm going to read it to you after a bit. Here it is here, printed it out. This is from his documentary, Trumpland. His latest thing in writing about, or he's done this documentary about people in the heartland, the Rust Belt, the Brexit area of the U.S. that will be voting for Trump, and he explains why. Now, briefly, for those of you who aren't familiar with who Michael Moore is, he's a guy who does documentaries, films documentaries. Pretty famous guy. Here he is right here. Probably recognize him. He's easily recognizable. And he did a lot of documentaries. Roger and Me. I think that was one of his first. He did Fahrenheit 9/11 about George Bush and the attack on the towers, the World Trade Center. I won an Oscar for Bowling for Columbine, about the massacre at Columbine High School. He attacks globalization, guns, health care, fast food, capitalism in general. He's a lefty. Okay, he's out there. Borderline socialist, if not a socialist. I think he was even the editor of Mother Jones for 4 months before they fired him. He wanted to do something on the Sandinistas, and they didn't want to go in that direction. It's whatever. Anyway, he was born in Flint, Michigan, where the General Motors plants are, and a lot of his family worked for General Motors. And so he was a witness when the plants were shut down and all the jobs were lost. He was there. He still lives in the area. He lives in, I believe, Davison, which is like 10 miles east of Flint. So he's made his money, but he hasn't abandoned the area. He still lives among these people who he speaks about. So, I mean, you got to give the guy props for that. He sees how the middle class and the lower class have been screwed over by the elites, and how the political class is in pay. They're being paid by the elites, by the corporatist elites. So he sees all this stuff. And he knows that the Clintons and NAFTA screwed over the automobile workers and all the jobs left. So when Trump talks about, Ford is leaving and to go to Mexico, Michael Moore knows what he's talking about because he saw GM leave and leave all these people, abandon the workers, and now they haven't done anything. And and on his website is really fascinating. I'm going to do a separate video on this. Because Michael Moore, on his website, you can actually go read it. 5 reasons why Trump will win. Because he flatly predicts that Trump will win. And so I'm going to do a separate video on these 5 reasons that he comes up with. In one of my first videos, I did, the subject was 15 reasons why Trump will win. Michael Moore has only 5, but they're very good. And he nails it cold. I mean, he takes 6 pages to do it, but he nails it cold. So I'm going to do a separate video here tomorrow or the next day on these 5 reasons and outline them. But here, I'm just going to go ahead and read what he wrote here. I can find where I put it already. I believe I lose this stuff so quickly. Here we go. And I'm just going to read it, so bear with me. It's a few paragraphs, and I'm going to have to drop a couple of F-bombs in here that is written. So if you got little kiddies in the room, cover their ears. But here we go. Donald Trump came to the Detroit Economic Club and stood there in front of the Ford Motor executives and said, if you close these factories, as you're planning to do in Detroit, and build them in Mexico, I'm going to put a 35% tariff on those cars when you bring them back, and nobody's going to buy them. It was an amazing thing to see. No politician, Republican or Democrat, had ever said anything like that to these executives. And it was music to the ears of people in Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, the Brexit states. That's what Moore calls them, the Brexit states. Whether Trump means it or not is kind of irrelevant because he's saying the things to people who are hurting. And it's why every beaten down, nameless, forgotten working stiff who used to be part of what was called the middle class loves Trump. He is a human Molotov cocktail that they've been waiting for. The human hand grenade that they can legally throw into the system that stole their lives from them. And on November 8th, Election Day, although they've lost their jobs, although they've been foreclosed on by the bank, next came the divorce and now the wife and kids are gone, the car has been repoed, they haven't had a real vacation in years, they're stuck with the shitty Obamacare bronze plan where you can't even get a fucking Percocet. They've essentially lost everything they've had, except one thing. The one thing that doesn't cost them a cent and is guaranteed to them by the American Constitution, the right to vote. They might be penniless, they might be homeless, they might be fucked over and fucked up. It doesn't matter because it's equalized on that day. A millionaire has the same number of votes as the person without a job, 1. And there's more of a former middle class than there are in the millionaire class. So on November 8th, the dispossessed will walk into the voting booth, be handed a ballot, close the curtain, and take that lever or felt pen or touch screen and put a big fucking X in the box by the name of the man who has threatened to upend and overturn the very system that has ruined their lives, Donald J. Trump. They see that the elites who ruin their lives hate Trump. Corporate America hates Trump. Wall Street hates Trump. The career politicians hate Trump. The media hates Trump. After they loved him and created him, now they hate him. Thank you very much, media. The enemy of my enemy is who I'm voting for on November 8th. Yes, on November 8th, you, Joe Blow, Steve Blow, Bob Blow, Bill Blow, Billy Bob Blow, all the blows, get to go and blow up the whole damn system because it's your right. Trump's election is going to be the biggest fuck you ever recorded in human history. And it will feel good. Okay? Michael Moore, predicting a Trump win, just for those reasons. Now, to my way of thinking, I mean, I've read Thomas Paine, Samuel Adams, H.L. Mencken. This is as good as any of those guys ever wrote. This is a polemic. This is, I mean, this really is hard hitting. So when Eric Trump, you know, Trump's son, when Eric Trump saw this out of Trump land, he said, well, you know, Michael Moore just endorsed my father. No, he didn't. You know, Michael Moore came up and says, no, I didn't endorse your father. And he said something to this effect about Trump. He compared him to a pedophile. He said, you have to protect the population from him like you do with a pedophile. A pedophile doesn't need to be in prison. They're sick. They have to be separated from us so they don't hurt children. You have to treat it that way. So he comes right back and calls Trump names. He's called Trump plenty of names. So now what do you make of that? On the one side, he lays it out perfectly, why Trump is going to win, and the reasons why, and they're all solid. And yet he calls Trump names, you know, and he says somewhere else here, which is kind of interesting, and I'll get back this, turn to this on the next video, but he talks about Hillary. Now, he's totally pro-Hillary, totally anti-Trump. And yet, there's something going on here that's hard to explain. He says, I actually like Hillary a lot, and I think she has been giving a bad rep she doesn't deserve. But her vote for the Iraq War made me promise her that I would never vote for her again. To date, I haven't broken that promise. For the sake of preventing a proto-fascist, Trump, from becoming our commander-in-chief, I'm breaking that promise. I sadly believe Clinton will find a way to get us into some kind of a military action. She's going to start a war. She's a hawk to the right of Obama. But Trump's psycho finger will be on the button. And that is that, done and done. And then he goes on about slamming Hillary. Our biggest problem here isn't Trump, it's Hillary. She is hugely unpopular. Nearly 70% of all voters think she is untrustworthy and dishonest. She represents the old way of politics, not really believing in anything other than what can get you elected. So what's going on here with Michael Moore? You know, on the one side, you know, he should be for Trump because he still lives there in the middle of that devastation that NAFTA caused, when all the car industry just was gutted, eviscerated by Clinton and her husband, NAFTA and, you know, other policies. And yet he's for her. And I don't know, I mean, I can't explain it. He's very anti-Trump, who, you know, looks at that thing and says, man, you know, this is terrible what's going on. So, you know, I think with Michael Moore's problem, and I don't want to put him on the couch, you know, that's not my job, and, you know, I'm probably wrong. But it seems to me he's like a lot of leftists. They're ruled by their emotions. You know, his head tells him Trump is right, but his heart, his emotions are with Hillary. So you got this head-heart thing going on, this thing, but he's being pulled in two different directions. And, you know, I used to not care much for Michael Moore. I thought he was, you know, he said some good things that needed to be said, but he was always, you know, saying them in the wrong way. He's always, you know, you know, I mean, I wouldn't mind sitting down and talking to the guy. I said, man, where are you coming from? How can you like Hillary, who is like the poster girl for corporatist America, you know, this middle class? And how can you be against Donald Trump? And see, just like Brexit, the votes that put Brexit over the top were from the working class and from the left part of the spectrum. And never forget that, is that it was the left, the working class left, the union guys that had lost their jobs in the Midlands, in Birmingham and around there. And they were lefties. They were always voted labor. And here, what Moore is saying is that, yeah, a lot of those old-line Democrats in there, the Brexit guys, union guys. I mean, his uncle was a mucky-muck for the UAW, United Auto Workers. So, you know, and I made a little diagram here, which is, this is on the right, the red, and on the blue is the left. Here's probably where I am on that scale, somewhere in here. And here's where Michael Moore is, correspondingly on the left. Here in the middle are the elites. They kind of shift over towards the left, but they take a chunk of this right here. So here's where the elites, and that's where Hillary Clinton sits. Trump is going to draw from the left here and from the right. A smaller percentage from the left, to be sure, you know, not many, but he's going to draw this chunk from the line. The elites are here in the middle. And that's basically what Moore is saying. You know, a lot of these guys are going to go for Trump. So, and he predicts a solid Trump win. So we'll see, you know. When you have a lefty like Michael Moore saying, you know, Trump has it in the bag, you know, that should cause shockwaves in the Hillary camp. We'll see if he's right. You know, I don't know. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.